Welcome to the final video in this 3-part video series. If you haven't seen the previous 2 videos, I recommend going back and watching those, because if you want to take great photos and video, you'll need to master the 3 settings in your camera, which are ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. In the last video, we talked about shutter speed. Now in this video, we'll be going over aperture. Remember in the first video we talked about ISO being the artificial light coming from the body of the camera? Well, when you think of aperture, think of it as real or natural light coming in through your lens. And your aperture varies upon the type of lens that you have. Your aperture controls how much light comes into the camera. So the lower the aperture, the more light can enter in through your lens. And then the higher the number, the less light can come through the lens. If we look at this diagram, you'll see as the aperture is at a 1.4, the aperture is wide open, right? And then when the number increases to 22, you'll notice the aperture closing to let in less light. Also, think of aperture as the iris in our eyes. When light hits our irises get smaller to let in less light so that we can see clearly. If we are in a darker room, our irises would open as wide as it can to let in as much light so that we can see what's in front of us, right? So then, when would be the time to adjust our aperture? The first reason would be your lighting situation. If you are outside and it's bright, you got your ISO adjusted to at least 100, your shutter speed to the right number, you would then increase your aperture to let in less light and balance the image. Now normally, what I do when I'm outside, I'll take my ISO to 100 and then adjust my shutter speed. Depending on what I'm trying to shoot, I'll adjust accordingly. Then if my image is still bright, I'll then increase my aperture to the desired setting. The second reason you would adjust your aperture is your depth of field, or also known as the amount of blur in the background. This is usually accomplished when there is a certain amount of space between the subject or object you're focusing on. Have you seen those pictures where the person is like crispy clear and the background is blurry? That is due to a low aperture. But if you see the person and the background clear, that's because the aperture is set high. It really depends on what you're trying to shoot at that time. If you want the person or object you're taking a picture of to be clear and the background to be blurry, bring your aperture down to its lowest setting. If you're taking a picture of a group of people and still want the background to be blurry, but the group of people to be clear, then you would increase your aperture to the setting where that is accomplished. Then if you're trying to capture a landscape, you would set your aperture high, capture most of the scene clearly. And this can be applied to shooting both photos and video. Woo! That's it. We done. There you have it, an explanation of aperture. So now that you have a basic understanding of ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, you should be ready to get out there and start capturing some sweet photos and video, but only if you practice, practice, practice. Again, learning is an active process. We learn by doing. So if you desire to master the principles you are studying, do something about them. Apply these rules at every opportunity. If you don't, you will forget them quickly. Only knowledge that is used sticks to your mind. So get out there and make it happen. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you have, let me know in the comments below. Like this, share this. I appreciate y'all. Peace. Now, I'm gonna go outside in this road and start shooting something. Photos and video, that is. Practice what I'm preaching. Practice something. Trying to get something out on the interweb and let y'all know what I'm up to. Yeah.